Hello guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I'm a flower farmer in East Yorkshire in the UK. And I've been wanting to make this video for a really long time because although I've had my channel for a couple of years now, I have never really told my story about how I became a flower farmer and the journey that I've taken to be where I am today. So I've been flower farming for 5 years now and I'm just going into my 6th growing season. So I feel like I'm at the position now where I want to be able to share my story of how I became a flower farmer, and I also want to answer any questions that you might have as well, because I kind of just threw myself into producing YouTube videos about growing and about my situation at the time in the flower fields and things, and I've never really taken you back on the journey to when I first started. So I want to just give a quick overview of the way that my business is running now, and then we'll go back to 2017 and I'll share with you my journey. We'll talk about the lessons that I learned in those years, what I achieved in those years, and how it set me up to move forward into the years ahead, and how it's made me who I am now and made my business what it is now. I just want to interrupt this video for a couple of seconds to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this week's video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of interesting classes which allows you to improve existing skills or learn something new. I'm a big believer in challenging yourself, and I love to keep my mind active by learning new things, which is what brought me to Skillshare. I love taking classes on filmmaking and video editing because although I've been doing this myself for a couple of years now, there's still so much to learn, and the class is taught by experts in the field, so I always walk away having learned something new. I just took a class with Lily Singh about social media success and how to tell stories through YouTube and other social media channels. Lily was so full of inspiration and information that I was able to take notes and think about how to incorporate her advice into my own channels. If filmmaking isn't your thing, Skillshare also has classes on everything from gardening, which I know you guys are into, to website design and business. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to join Skillshare will receive a 1-month free trial. So get signed up via the link in my video description and see what new things you can learn too. So at the moment I am offering DIY wedding flowers from the flower farm. I'm offering bouquets, and I also offer workshops as well. And obviously things have been a little bit tricky because of COVID, so for the last couple of years we haven't really been able to run workshops, but I will talk you through all of that. And then obviously more recently I have started my YouTube channel, so that also contributes to the business as well. So we'll go into that when we get into 2021 or 2020. That's when I started my YouTube channel. So I'm living here in East Yorkshire on the farm, so it's my husband's family farm, and we are lucky enough to be living on kind of, I think it's around 400-acre plot, and we live on the farm with my mother and father-in-law, so we're all here together as a family on the farm. And I'm lucky enough to have half an acre of that total amount, and I grow it on 2-quarter-acre plots. So my original plot that I started with in 2017 is over near our house, and that is where my teepee is that I run workshops from. And then I have another plot round the back of the farm which is another 1/4 acre field, and that has the polytunnel and another greenhouse, etc. So that's sort of a broad overview. I have 2 fields that I'm farming, both 1/4 acre in size, so half an acre total. I have a polytunnel, which I think is 60 foot by 24 foot in size. I have 2 greenhouses, and I have a teepee that I run workshops from, and I have this workshop, which is a shipping container that just allows me to store all of my stuff, and also a workspace for me to be able to create bunches of flowers and things like that and just get creative. And I'm even using it as a seed sowing area at the moment. So we'll go back to 2017, or maybe we'll go a bit before 2017, and I'll tell you about what I did before I was a flower farmer. So in 2012 I met Rob, and I was working in the local pub, and I was just about to head off to university, and I went to university in North Wales, and I did a degree in applied marine biology. So that course was 4 years long, and in between my second and third year at university, I did a work placement, and I got to do some really cool stuff like working with African cichlids, and I was part of a research study on cichlids in crater lakes in Tanzania. So when I finished my degree in North Wales, I really wanted to pursue the evolutionary kind of vein. It was very interesting to me at the time. So I managed to bag a master's degree at Hull University, which is kind of about 10 miles away from home here. So I could move back in with Rob back to the farm and start doing a master's degree in something that I was really passionate about at the time. So I was really excited at the prospects of my future career as an evolutionary biologist. But the master's degree didn't exactly turn out the way that I thought it would, and it ended up being very desk based, very computer based, and I was doing lots of coding. I had to learn how to code things so that I could analyse DNA sequences and things on the computer, and a lot of it was kind of going over my head and I wasn't really enjoying it. It wasn't the practical kind of thing that I thought it was going to be, and although I was still really passionate about the topic, it was really hard for me to sit at a desk for that amount of time every day. So at the time I started getting into a little bit of veg growing and things, and I applied for an allotment in the village. I was coming home from my master's degree every day, and I just couldn't wait to get outside, start sowing seeds and start working the land a little bit and trying to grow things. And at this point in my life, I had never had any horticultural training, and I was a total novice. And as time went on, I sort of became a little bit more frustrated with the master's degree, a little bit more obsessed with sowing seeds and being outdoors at home on the farm. So there came a point in sort of late 2016, early 2017, where I just decided, look, I've got to make a decision for my own happiness. I'm going to quit the master's degree and I'm going to pursue something else that I can do at home on the farm. So at that point I was also working at a local pub, a local village pub, and so I was doing something like 15 hours a week, so I wasn't earning a lot of money at the time. And also at that time I was planning a wedding, so me and Rob had just got engaged and I was looking into different vendors for our wedding, and I noticed that there were a few, there isn't very many local flower farmers around here. I think the closest one is kind of an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I noticed that was somewhere that I could source flowers for my wedding, and they would be British grown, locally grown, and I thought that was a really cool idea. So I started looking into it a bit more, and I thought it was really interesting that people were earning a living off growing flowers and being outdoors, and I was ticking over in my mind at the time. I was thinking, I've got the perfect setup here. We've got land available that I could potentially use. Just kind of gradually got more obsessed with it, and I decided to do a trial of growing my own flowers for my wedding at home the year before we got married. So I started buying lots of seeds, buying dahlia tubers and things like that, and then at some point I must have decided I want to be a flower farmer. So as you can imagine, I think I was 24 at the time as well, so I was relatively young compared to a lot of the other flower farmers out there. I didn't have any savings. I'd just finished uni. I was working a bar job for not many hours every week. So as you can imagine, I didn't have many funds to put towards the new venture. So whatever I was earning from the bar work, I was basically putting straight into the flower farm. So I was purchasing things like dahlia tubers, seeds, the tools and stuff that I needed. And luckily, I had the land. I had my time in labour to be able to put towards the flower farm, and that's really all I needed to begin with. In hindsight, it would have been amazing if I could have started the farm with a few grand so that I could have purchased all of my weed membrane, purchased a polytunnel, a greenhouse, etc., etc. But the way that my business has evolved is I've just sort of progressed as I've started making more money. I've never taken out any loans in the business, and I've only ever funded it through itself. So it's taken me a lot of time to grow. It's taken me until probably last year for me to feel comfortable that I can make a living off the flower farm. But that's because it's been funding itself. So it has been very slow growing, but I'm hoping that it's going to be long-lasting growth that's going to last for a long time into the future as well. So in 2017, when I decided I'm going to be a flower farmer, I got a guy in to come and rotivate our front field that we have in front of our house, and it is a triangle shape, which is just the most awkward shape to try and create a flower farm out of, because you can't make any of your beds a standard size really because of the awkward shape of it. So I think I had my flower field rotivated in early 2017, so I think it was maybe January or February time. I still knew absolutely nothing about growing flowers, so I was just winging the whole thing. I decided to book onto a course with Georgie Newberry at Common Farm Flowers down in Somerset, and did a 2-day course, I think it was, on flower farming for beginners, and that course was really good. I would recommend to anybody who's starting out in flower farming to go on a course at the start, because you definitely learn a lot from somebody who's got a bit more experience than you, especially when you know nothing about growing flowers. So I was about to edge all of my beds with wooden frames for some reason, and Georgie put me off that idea, and she was like, why would you waste all that money on wood and stuff when you could just have beds, just basic beds on the ground? So that saved me a lot of money, because I was worrying about how I was going to afford all this wood that I was going to edge all my beds with. So yeah, I learnt a lot at Georgie's course, and then what did I do next? I started digging muck into my flower beds, so to get some nutrition into the flower beds. So this is when I wish I knew about no dig, because I actually felt a bit like my soul was being destroyed digging all of those beds in the flower field. At the time I got a bit of help from a few friends and things, but mostly I was doing it on my own. And then one of the big mistakes I made was, God, it's just so funny how this, in 2017, I literally cried every day because everything was just felt like it was going wrong at the time, and I was so overwhelmed with it all, but it makes me laugh now when I'm thinking about it. I put some weed membrane on my flower beds, which wasn't even non-permeable to the sunlight. So the sunlight was still getting through the flower beds. I don't even know what the weed membrane was. It was just some kind of weird fabric stuff. And the light was getting through. So obviously the weed seeds and everything just started germinating. The grass, because at the time I didn't want to use Roundup. I just had the grass rotivated, and obviously the grass started growing back, the weed seeds started germinating. So I remember the day when I uncovered all of my beds and I saw all the weeds and grass growing, and I just cried and cried and cried. And then I started weeding them all, and that was just after all of the digging. And then I had to move on to doing all of that weeding. I had not even grown a single flower yet, and it's just felt like such hard work. And that is why I wish I'd just, at the beginning, I wish I'd known about using weed membrane and using no dig and things like that. I'm sure, well, at the moment I get compost for free. So if I'd have done a bit more research, I would have found the place that I get my compost from now, and I would have been able to go and collect that and use that, which might have been better than the stuff than whatever I was doing at the time. So this was kind of around February time, I think, which was perfect because it was the start of the season and I could start sowing seeds and things. So I didn't have a greenhouse to begin with, but my mother-in-law has a swimming pool over at her house, and it has like a big enclosure on it, which basically is a massive greenhouse, and the pool is heated as well. So that was just the perfect environment for me to start my seeds off in. So I was heading over to Hare House every day just to make sure my seeds were germinating and looking okay. And when I think about the numbers, I thought I was sowing absolutely thousands of seeds, but when I think about it now, it probably was just a few, it probably wasn't even that much. It was probably enough for 1 or 2 beds that I would grow nowadays. I didn't plan anything. I didn't plan how many plants I was going to need per bed or anything like that. It was just a total guessing game. And I probably just sowed one small tray of, I don't know how many, maybe a cell tray that had kind of like 50 or 40 cells in it. I'll probably just sow one of those of each variety. I just had no idea whatsoever, and I didn't know how I was going to do my plant spacing or anything like that, so I was just totally winging it. In 2017, once I had all of those plants going in my mother-in-law's pool enclosure, I started planting them out in the field once the field was ready, and I was just continually weeding the field at that point because it was just full of weeds and grass all of the time, encroaching onto the beds. And also because I had such wide grass paths in between each bed, the grass paths were kind of just all the time encroaching onto the flower beds, so I was constantly felt like I had to edge the beds to keep them from getting any smaller. So I planted out the first lot of annuals. I don't even think I knew anything about succession sowing at the time, or maybe I did, but I just didn't. I don't think that I did much of it that year, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So yeah, planted out those plants. I don't think that I actually ended up picking any flowers until July time, because I'd started in the spring. I hadn't had chance to do anything, put anything in the previous autumn, so I didn't have any bulbs, any of the ranunculus and things that I have now, any autumn sown hardy annuals. So I kind of had to wait until the first flush of hardy annuals came, and that was kind of July time. So there's loads of things that I grew that year that I don't grow now because I've realised how annoying they are to pick, or just that I don't like them. So in the first year I grew quite a lot of sweet peas outdoors. I think I actually continued to grow them for another 2 or 3 years, but now I don't grow sweet peas because I just find them a bit annoying. And what else? Calendula. I really don't like calendula. It self-seeds everywhere. I hate the shade of yellow that it is, and I hate the orange calendula as well. They do have some nice varieties now, like the kind of caramelly, I can't remember the names of any of the varieties, but I know they do have some nicer, creamier coloured ones nowadays, but I'm not a big fan of those. And also, what else? Nicotiana. I grew that in my first year. That's kind of weird and sticky. Smells amazing, but I just don't like the flowers very much. Yeah, so that year I tried to sell my flowers. Oh God, I was just scrolling through my Instagram before I started filming this video, and when I look back at the first bouquets that I made, they were just so cringily small, and I wrapped them really weird, and I sort of wrapped the stems, and then the flowers were like poking out of the top. But I had never done any floristry courses. I was just practicing with my own flowers. So I started off selling £5 jars of flowers and £5 bunches of flowers, which in hindsight I regret doing, because people even now still ask for whether I'm doing £10. I do £10 bunches of flowers on my honesty box, but people always want the small bunches of flowers, not the large bunches of flowers, because I think that they've got it in their mind that I make small bunches of flowers and sell small bunches of flowers. So I think at the time I was worried about the quantity of flowers that I had, and I wasn't able to pick a large quantity at a time, so I wasn't actually able to make a lot of large bunches of flowers in my first year. So that is probably why I came up with the £5 bunches. But I built the honesty box up on the top of the driveway, and it was kind of just like a table with some crates on top of it, and I would put some jars of flowers and some bunches of flowers up there. And at first I did get a little bit disheartened because I didn't sell many. I sold a couple, and I was having to bring them back on a night, and then I was thinking, how long do I try to sell them for? 2 days, 1 day, before I give them away or just throw them on the compost. So I think that was just definitely the start of something, because I'm still doing my honesty box today, and it's really, really popular now. So I'm glad that I started doing the honesty box, but I just wish I'd have maybe done it in a little bit more of a more luxurious way to start with, if you know what I mean. So also in 2017, I tried to sell some jars of flowers through a local farm shop, and at that time, I think I was thinking that I could get my flowers into shops and things and start selling my flowers through those kind of avenues. And I think that I was probably influenced by Georgie Newberry and the course that I went on, because I think at the time she was selling some of her flowers that way. So I was like, oh, I'm going to approach local cafes and I'm going to approach pubs and see if they want my flowers to be on their tables. And I'm going to see if I can sell my flowers in local shops and things like that. And that obviously isn't the way that I went. I was kind of disheartened when the flowers didn't sell in the farm shop that I put the flowers in. So I was kind of bummed about that, but it kind of forced me to try and sell more of the flowers from the farm, and people just came to collect them. So I was trying to sell them through Instagram and Facebook and things like that at the time, and I don't think I really sold much in my first year, but it was great to just learn the ropes, learn how to grow flowers for the first time ever, and make lots and lots of steep learning curves. And yeah, it was definitely such a challenging year. I don't cry a lot, but I definitely cried a lot in that year. So in 2017, I also put up my Polytunnel, which I actually didn't realise it was in my first year. I thought it was a lot later than that. But I got some inheritance from my granddad at the time, and I was able to put some money towards the greenhouse, which was, towards the Polytunnel, which was amazing, because that would have been a really big investment for me, and I didn't have the cash for that at the time. I also put up a greenhouse in 2017, and it's the greenhouse that we have in our garden near the house, and it is Rob's grandfather's old greenhouse. So it's a wooden greenhouse, really nice looking. So I painted it up, and I bought perspex for it. So it hasn't got glass in it, it's got perspex. That was quite a big investment, but we were worried about the dogs running into the glass and things like that. And I have a glass greenhouse up now, and a few of the panes have smashed, and nothing has ever happened to the acrylic plastic sheet panels in the greenhouse that I've got now. So that was definitely a good investment. I don't think that's going to perish for a long, long time. So that's definitely was worth it in the beginning. So in 2017, I'm shocked that I did this actually, but I ran my first workshops in 2017, and I ran some Christmas wreath making workshops. So we didn't really have anywhere on the farm at the time that we could convert into a workshop space. We decided to make a little bit of an investment into a bell tent, and that was really great for a couple of years. Was it 1 year? I think I used it for 1 year. It was really great for like dipping my little toe into the workshops and seeing whether it was something that I fancied doing. I just wanted to see whether I could run workshops and whether it was a good way to make money. And I was really nervous about running workshops because I thought I had serious imposter syndrome, and I was like, I am a first year flower farmer. I don't know anything about flower farming. I don't know anything about arranging flowers. All I know is that I can practice, I can learn from other people online, and once I felt confident enough to be offering workshops, then I put a handful of them online, advertised them through Facebook and booked them up. I think I taught about 6 people at a time to make Christmas wreaths. So they went really well, and I was really pleased with the amount of money I was able to make for running workshops, because you can sell flowers and you can sell wreaths, but you can make so much more money by offering somebody an experience, and people really loved coming into the bell tent because it just felt really cosy. I had a log burner in there at the time, so people would come in and get near the fire, and it was just a nice experience for people. So I was really encouraged by the amount of enjoyment people felt through coming to do the workshops. So I decided that the following year, in 2018, I was going to offer more workshops in the spring. So I did a couple of posy making workshops where people would arrange flowers into a small vase, and I also started collaborating with other people. So I would get other people to come in and teach workshops. So we did things like yoga, and we did willow weaving in 2018 as well. So moving on to 2018, I still hadn't learned from a lot of the mistakes that I made in 2017, and this is what I mean by it felt like it took me a long time to get to where I am today, because I didn't correct my mistakes immediately, and I carried on trying to work through the problems that I was having by using the wrong solution to the problem. I hope that makes sense. So if I'd known the things that I know now, I would have just put weed membrane all over my field. I wouldn't have spent my full days weeding throughout the summer, and I would have just made things a lot easier for myself. But I struggled on in 2018, and I started doing farmers markets in 2018. We purchased the teepee for running workshops in. I started doing weddings, so I was arranging flowers for weddings, and a whole host of other things. And then in 2018, Rob and I got married. So we actually in 2017, I was planning to grow my own flowers for my own wedding, but then we actually just decided to get married abroad. So we got married in Ibiza in 2018. So in 2017, I started advertising the fact that I was providing wedding flowers. I don't know how I had the audacity to do it. Like I said before, I ran wreath making workshops before I even knew how to kind of make wreaths myself. So I offered wedding flowers. I'd still not had any kind of floral training, so I was just winging it really. And I was offering to make bouquets, buttonholes and table flowers and things like that. Because I saw that other people were doing it, I was like, well, that's what I'm going to have to do. And that's how I'm going to be able to make the markup on the flowers for me to be able to make a living from selling the flowers. So I offered in 2017 to do wedding flowers. I got a few bookings. I can't remember how many weddings I did in 2018. It might have been kind of 5 or 6 maybe. Well, I was nervous about them all because you're providing something for somebody's big day, aren't you? And it's going to be on their photographs and everything forever. But some of them I really, really enjoyed doing because the brides were just amazing, and well, I enjoyed doing them all. I don't know why I'm saying some of them. I enjoyed doing them all. There was a couple that I was a little bit more nervous for than others, but that was just a learning curve. I was still learning how to do all of these things, learning to grow flowers, learning to arrange flowers. And yeah, I just thought, oh well, I'm just going to have to keep at the wedding flowers, because that's how I was making my money that year. So carried on doing that. And then I also started doing farmers markets. So I was doing the there was a farmers market in Hull that I started doing in 2018, and I did that every the last Sunday of every month, I think it was. And that was a really cool farmers market. I absolutely loved doing that. I think I did that for 2 years and then I stopped because of COVID. I wasn't always able to take that many flowers with me because at the time I wasn't maximising the space in the front field. I didn't have that many flowers to actually take with me. So I could have made a lot more money at the flowers markets, but I just wasn't producing enough at the time. And because I was spending so much time weeding, I didn't have the time to put into actually growing more flowers and thinking about how I could grow more flowers and make it easy for myself. So I think in that year I was selling out at the farmers markets, and I think I was making £300 or £400 at every market, and I would sell out within 2 hours, and then I would be packing up and going home after a couple of hours, and I could have carried on selling for another 3 or 4 hours, but I was selling out just because I didn't have enough at the time. But I really enjoyed that farmers market, so I continued doing that into 2019 as well. So in 2018 I was kind of doing the same as what I'd done in 2017, but just trying to get a bit better at it. And then late in 2018 I purchased the teepee that we've got now, and that was really great to be able to do workshops in that teepee at Christmas time. So I think we got it in about November time, and I was able to run workshops that year in the teepee, and everybody found it really magical and really enjoyed doing the workshops in the teepee. So I was really excited for 2019 to come around so that I could offer more workshops. And at that point I started looking at other people who could come and run workshops on the farm. So when I was unable to run workshops in the teepee, I was trying to make it pay for itself by getting people to come and run workshops that weren't flower related, that I could run out of season and things like that. So that year in 2019 we had lots of stuff like calligraphy classes, painting classes, jewellery making, candle making, willow weaving, arm knitting classes where we made giant chunky blankets, and what else? I think that was about it. There's maybe a couple of others. So I really, really enjoyed doing those workshops because it drew people to the teepee who wouldn't necessarily come for a flower workshop, but those people enjoyed it, and those people have come back for subsequent workshops with flowers and things like that. So the teepee has been really great because it's created a really loyal customer base for me, and people come back to the workshops year after year, and they come back to buy flowers from me in summer and things like that. So it's really nice to see people year after year coming back to experience different workshops and bring their friends and family back with them. So that is definitely one of the really nice aspects about having the teepee and running workshops. So in 2019 I kind of started learning from my mistakes and kind of evolving to be what I am today. I would say that whatever I was doing in 2017 and 18 is very different from what I'm doing now, and my style and everything was quite different. But in 2019 I feel like I started to develop the style that I have today and do the kind of bunches of flowers that I do today, and started moving towards the style of farming that I do now, which is no-till or no-dig farming. So early on in 2019 we hired a grass remover, a turf cutter remover thing, and we removed all of the turf in the front field between the flower beds. It was such a difficult task. We were removing turf for a few days, and then we had all of these rolls of turf that were just so heavy that we had to move onto pallets and then bring out of the flower field. So that was really physical work for a week or so, but that gained us an extra something like 60 square metres of growing space just in that one small area, and then by that point I still hadn't learnt my lesson about weed membrane, or it hadn't registered in my head that weed membrane was the way to go. So I put these narrow paths that were about that wide between each bed, and each bed was kind of 1.5 meters wide, and I went from having 12 beds in my flower field with massive grass paths in between to 20 beds with tiny little weed membrane paths in between. And that year I grew loads more flowers, but I spent so much time weeding again because I didn't have any kind of weed suppression sorted out in the field at that point, and I still wasn't able to find some compost that would provide a good mulch for me either. So I was kind of just growing on the bare soil and expecting the weeds not to show up, but obviously they did. So like I said, in 2019 I felt like I found my style. I was using the wrapping technique that I use now for my flower bouquets, and I was quite happy with the way that they looked. Growing lots of the nice dahlia varieties and things. I was kind of the previous couple of years I was kind of just growing anything and everything, and in 2019 I was able to kind of hone in on the varieties that I really liked and buy more of the varieties that I liked, and be selective about the kind of things that I wanted to grow on the flower farm. So at this point I'd expanded on the original flower field, and I was starting to think maybe I'm going to need more space for growing. So I was selling out at the flowers markets. I was doing quite a lot of weddings. I can't remember how many I did in 2019. I think I might have done 12 or 13. And I was doing things like big archway arrangements. I was doing big hanging hoops in sheds, in barns and things. And I was doing those kind of big arrangements, and I was doing wedding bouquets. At this point I was offering DIY flower buckets, so I did a few of those in 2019, and I really enjoyed quite a lot of those weddings, but I was slowly starting to realise that it's just not something that I want to do going into the future. So I really had to think about whether I was still going to offer the wedding flowers into the future, because it was kind of starting to play on my mind a little bit, making me a little bit unhappy, increasing my levels of anxiety, and I honestly don't think there's any point in doing something if it doesn't make you happy and if you're not enjoying it. So I decided to scale back in 2019, and I started offering bouquets, buttonholes and buckets, so people could order those things, but that was it. And if they wanted somebody to put in a big arrangement, then they would maybe have to look for a different florist. I just decided that it wasn't for me anymore. I got into it because I enjoy being outdoors. I enjoy growing the flowers. I didn't get into it for the arranging. I could have become a market gardener and I could have been growing vegetables, but I just settled on flowers to begin with. I didn't get into it because of the flowers and because of the floristry. So I'd sort of led myself down that path by thinking that I had to make money by doing weddings, and I soon realised that no amount of money could make me continue to do weddings because I just wasn't enjoying it. And also in that year I was pushing the workshops more. I was still selling out at the farmers market, so I thought that I could make money through those other avenues. And actually in 2019 and 2020 tax year, that was my most profitable year to date, because COVID kicked in after that, and I lost a lot of income in 2020-21. So because I knew that I needed more flowers to be able to sell more at the farmers markets and to be able to offer more DIY wedding buckets, because I was doing all of the weddings in 2019, I often didn't have enough of my own flowers, so I was buying them in from other flower farmers. I was having to drive quite a long way to their farms to get the flowers, so I wanted to be able to grow more of my own so I could provide all of my own flowers to the clients, to the wedding clients. So where the Polytunnel is situated at the back of the farm, that was just a field that horses were in at the time, and I asked if I could have a level portion across the field from the Polytunnel. So that added another 1/4 acre to my growing area. So 1/4 acre at the front of the farm and 1/4 acre around the back, plus the Polytunnel. So we marked it off, and I think there's a video about how I did it, but it was the second year. I made a video the second year that I tried to grow on it. The first year, I think I had Rob plough it, and he put some muck onto it and power harrowed that into the field. And then I think it was getting quite late in the season by the time he'd done that with his tractor. So the land was kind of workable at that point, but it was getting really late into the season. I think it was about May time, because we were just about to go away for our wedding anniversary again. And I just decided I'm going to string a load of lines across the field, and I'm going to try and direct sow the whole field. So I did it all by hand, strung it all out, and then we went off on holiday, and I was hoping to come back and see lots of germination, but that just didn't happen. I don't think that I actually harvested anything from that field in that year. That was just a massive failure, was the direct sowing. It didn't get watered enough, the ground didn't get prepared well enough. I probably didn't even sow the seeds very well either. And to this day, I still don't direct sow anything, and I think that there's a lot of farmers that don't direct sow anything, but it was just a last ditch attempt to try and get some more flowers for 2019 season. But turns out it didn't work, and that's just another learning curve that I experienced, and something that I'll probably never try again unless I really want to do it properly. So in 2020, lots of interesting stuff happened. I decided to have a proper go at growing near the Polytunnel area again. I started my YouTube channel, I got our alpacas, we got Hector the pig. If anyone's a fan of Hector the pig, we got him in 2020. Also, COVID happened in 2020, which was obviously not the best thing. But I still had all of the flowers that I was growing for the year ahead. So I had lots of weddings booked in for 2020 that I wasn't able to do because of the lockdowns and things. And the first lockdown in the UK coincided with the start of the growing season, or the flowering season for us. I just didn't know at the time. Nobody knew what was going to happen, and everybody was scared to go out, and we were all told to just stay inside, and everybody was just didn't know. So I was like, should I even be growing flowers? And I was like, I'm going to do it anyway, because it will give me something to do. So April, May time came around. I had loads of ranunculus. I forgot to mention, in 2019, one of my flower farmer friends closed their flower farm, so they were selling off all of their perennials. So I travelled down to their farm, took a van, filled up the van with as many perennials as I could get, and brought them back and planted them out in the field in 2019. And that is when I started using weed membrane finally in the front field. So some of the perennials that I did have, I split them up and put them into weed membrane in the field. And also something worth mentioning is that in 2017, I didn't have the money to put into perennials at the time. So I didn't have much, because I didn't have much money to spend on flowers and things. I just didn't spend money on perennials, and what I could grow from seed, I tried to do that. So I had some verbena. I think I bought a couple of Alchemilla mollis plants. So I was able to split them up into it became quite a sizable chunk, so I managed to split it up into lots of small chunks. So after splitting all of those and the plants that I purchased from my friend's flower farm that was closing down, in 2020, they all flowered really well in spring. So I had quite a large amount of perennials at the start of the season, which is something that I'd never had before. So as I was always waiting for the annuals to flower, which was kind of late June time, early July. So I always felt like I was having the ranunculus in spring, and then I had this massive gap until the hardy annuals started flowering. So everything started to feel like it was falling into place because I had my perennials there at the start of the season. So there wasn't so much of a gap between my spring flowers and my summer flowers. So in April, May time, when the ranunculus started flowering, I had ranunculus and I had geums and things, and I was able to make up lots of bunches of flowers, and I started offering delivery of bouquets to local people because people weren't allowed to drive around and go to different people's houses and stuff. So I was just making doorstep deliveries of flowers, and it was nice because a lot of people who were staying at home because of COVID, they were sending flowers to their friends, or they were treating themselves as a little pick-me-up and things like that. So I did really enjoy doing the deliveries. It was nice to get out and about, but I also didn't have the time because I was working on the flowers. I was doing lots of weeding, trying to set up a new growing area, etc. I didn't have the time to be driving around the town delivering flowers, so I stopped doing that. During the summer, when people were moving around a little bit more, people would just come to the farm to collect flowers. So in 2020, I had, I think I was watching Gardener's World on TV, and Monty Don was making his own seed mix from his own compost and various other things. And at the time, I'd got some compost in, and I was like, oh, I can make my own compost too. So I just took like straight compost and started sowing seeds into it. And obviously it was just too nutrient rich. It just wasn't what the seedlings needed. And I lost so many seedlings that year. A lot of them died, a lot of them failed. I think I also tried to harden some of them off too early. And they just died in the cold weather. They were dying left, right and centre. And I was really upset about that. So the new flower field that I was hoping to set up that year, I think I only ever managed to plant half of it because of the amount of seed failures that I had. But the lucky thing was that all of my weddings and farmers markets and things had been cancelled that year anyway. So I was going to lose money whether I had the flowers there or not. I maybe would have been able to sell them, but I don't know, because we weren't able to. But that was a huge learning curve, and I thought after 3 or 4 years of flower farming that I would have got the hang of it by then, but I'm still making mistakes and learning from them as well, so it's a slow process for me. So in 2019 and 20, I'd run lots of workshops in 2019, and like I said, I made the greatest amount of profit and turnover in that year. And I was thinking at the time, I'm 2 years in my 3rd year, I'm going to be able to sustain myself by being able to pay my own wages and things like that. So at this point, I'd quit the bar job that I had, and luckily I was able to work a few hours on the farm. So on the farm we do boarding for horses and donkeys, and I work with the horses and donkeys in the winter time usually, when it's less busy on the flower farm. So that helps towards my income when the flowers aren't so productive. And in 2019 I didn't have to work on the farm at all in the summer and for some of the winter, I think. And then in 2020, when COVID hit, because I wasn't making as much money, I wasn't being able to do farmers markets, I wasn't able to do weddings, luckily I was able to pick up some work on the farm. So I was working with the horses and donkeys again, and I was taking a wage from that. So it's just so lucky that I'm able to just pick up the work when I need it and put it down when I'm too busy, because it's so difficult, because it is a seasonal business. I'm still having to do a little bit of work on the farm in the winter just to help me get by. But that is also mainly down to COVID, because things aren't running at full tilt even now. So this is going into the 3rd year now of COVID, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to run workshops as normal this year, perhaps do some farmers markets and things, and kind of get back to normal. But it's been really difficult with COVID, so I've been having to do quite a lot of work on the farm to try and help towards my income. But I am lucky in the respect that I don't pay rent on my land. I didn't take any loans out for the business to start with. I just let it grow organically. Because we are living on the farm, Rob and I personally don't have to pay a mortgage, which really, really helps. My income isn't so important to us both that I need to be earning a certain amount every month. So it allows for a little bit of flexibility. Without us being in that situation, I'm not sure whether I could flower farm the way that I do, because it's taken me a long time to grow, a long time to learn things, and I haven't had to go from 0 to 100 very quickly to be able to pay bills and things like that. So I am very lucky in that respect. A lot of things started falling into place in 2020. I was definitely working a lot more towards the style that I have now, like I was in 2019. Things were good considering the fact that I wasn't earning much money back in 2020. 2020, I couldn't run any wreath making workshops at Christmas, but I was offering Christmas wreath making kits that people could come and collect, and then there would be a private YouTube video for them to watch at home and follow along at home with their friends and family, or do it over Zoom with their friends and family. And luckily that was quite popular, so I wasn't losing too much money that Christmas, although I still did lose a lot. So back in 2019-2020, which is the year that I said I had the greatest amount of turnover so far, that year 66% of my turnover was from running workshops. So you can see how important they are to my business, and why I just can't wait to get back to running them again. So in 2021, I really wanted to, we still didn't know where we were with COVID, and I was hoping that I was going to be able to run some workshops at some point, but I really wanted to get the growing nailed in the backfield and have a full field of flowers in that backfield, so I was prepared for anything. I was hoping that I was able to do some weddings again in 2021, and maybe even some farmers markets. Turns out we weren't able to do any farmers markets in 2021, but I did manage to run some workshops, and I was able to sell lots of bunches of flowers from the farm, and also do a few weddings, a handful of weddings as well. So over the years, my honesty box got really popular, and I would be putting things on my Instagram, and I'd say the honesty box flowers are out now. I've put a limited amount of bunches out, and they'd be gone within an hour, and I'd put, say, 20 bunches of flowers out. So I've done most of my marketing throughout the years on my Instagram page, and I'm really lucky now to have lots of amazing followers on my Instagram and lots of them live local and are customers to me. So it's really nice for me to have that amazing customer base on my Instagram account who snap up workshops, snap up bouquets and things as soon as I put them online. It's really great for me to have that audience there for me to be able to sell my products to. And in 2021, I was able to run a couple of workshops in the teepee. So when the weather was nice outside, we put a new porch on the teepee, and it was really nice when the weather was nice. So I ran a couple of workshops where people could come and pick their own flowers, and I would teach them how to wrap them up, and how to arrange them into a bunch and wrap them up into paper the way that in my style. So I really enjoyed having people around to the farm and coming and appreciating the flowers and seeing what it's all about, because it's nice to get them to come and pick the flowers rather than me putting the flowers together, or me picking the flowers and taking them up to the teepee. So it saved a bit of work for me, and I really enjoyed seeing what people picked and what they came up with towards the end of the workshops. So I'm definitely going to be running more of those workshops in 2022. And I didn't run any collaborative workshops in 2021 because I just didn't want to hire somebody in, get them to come and run the workshops and then have to cancel it because of the COVID rules changing and things like that. So in 2021, I really started working on the YouTube channel. In February, I did a few daily vlogs where I was vlogging my seed sowing journey. I might do that again this year actually. And it was really nice to just get to know my audience on YouTube. So in 2021, I felt like everything just felt like it was falling into place in 2021. I felt like I'd learned from all of my mistakes. I was more confident in the decisions that I was making on the flower farm because I'd tried it all and I knew what worked for me and what didn't. And yeah, I just felt a lot more confident in what I was doing, and as long as I followed a certain amount of steps and carried on doing the things that I was doing, then I was guaranteed to have flowers that year. It wasn't so much of a lottery or a gamble on whether I was going to have flowers or not, because I'd kind of got the experience under my belt and I knew what I was getting myself into every year. So that's a really nice feeling, and it's nice to be able to show that on my YouTube channel, because when I first started out, I wish that there was somebody in the UK specifically that I could watch on YouTube, and I could compare my plant growth to theirs. I could compare my seed germination to theirs and things. Because at the time in 2017, all I wanted was just some validation from somebody else who was doing the same thing that I wanted to do, and I could just check that I was doing the right thing, and that my plants looked the same as theirs, and just see how they were getting on, and just have some more ideas for what was the best way to do things. So I think that's the motivation behind me doing this YouTube channel, is that it gives people who are starting off an idea of somebody else's experience and what their farm looks like, and what's going on somebody else's flower farm, and how it can look in the future. So luckily as well, in 2021 I was able to run Christmas workshops. That was just a couple of months ago now, and because of the popularity of the teepee and the workshops that I've run in the past, I ran just solely private workshops in the teepee this Christmas. I didn't have to do any advertising for mixed groups of people that were coming to do wreath making workshops. It was all just private inquiries from people who'd been to the teepee before and done Christmas wreath making workshops, or had heard about me through word of mouth. So luckily I didn't have to do any advertising or anything like that. I just had solidly booked up the teepee for sort of 2.5-3 weeks, just running workshops with people who had been before or knew about me, and yeah, it was just so nice to be able to do that and have groups of friends and family that came in. This year I definitely want to put on lots and lots of wreath making workshops, because like I mentioned before, my workshops made up 66% of my turnover in my highest turnover year, and of that 66%, 25% of that came from wreath making workshops. So wreath making workshops make up a big chunk of my income every winter. So if I can get in as many as possible, then that allows me to keep going a little bit further over Christmas, and means that I don't have to work on the farm as much. And I'm really going to push things this year. So I want to be able to make a really good wage this year, and have a few financial goals and things that I want to hit this year. So I'm really hoping that I'm able to hit those. But really, it is mostly COVID dependent at this point. So if I can get the workshops in, and if I can get the weddings in, the wedding buckets, this year I'm going to be offering flower subscriptions. So I'm going to be offering deliveries, which I'm hoping is going to kind of increase my audience and increase the amount of people that have access to my flowers. I'm hoping that all that is going to help me reach my financial goals this year. So I'm really looking forward to 2022. I'm hoping that I can hit my goals, and also the YouTube is really helping with that as well. So I'm making a little bit of an income every month off YouTube now, and if you watch my channel already, you'll know that I've done a few sponsorships and things like that too. So that really helps to give me a kind of stable income every month. So if I can continue to make the videos even throughout the winter, it doesn't matter, I'm still making an income off YouTube as long as I'm posting videos. So I'm really hoping to continue to build the YouTube channel. Last summer when I got busy, I stopped making YouTube videos throughout the summer, but this year I'm hoping to find the time to put towards filming and editing YouTube videos in the summer, so that I can keep them coming to you all summer long. So I've got a couple of questions that I posted a question on my Instagram page earlier on. I said that I was filming this video, and I just asked if anybody had any questions. So I'm just going to have a look at those questions, and if there's something that I haven't answered, I will answer it to you guys now, and maybe I'll sort of reiterate the points of things that I've gone over already, just to make sure that I've covered everything. So the most common question that I was asked actually is, do I have another job? And obviously I hope I've explained that to you. So when I first started flower farming, I had a part-time job as a barmaid, and I funded kind of the start of the flower farm through that bar work. And then when I need the money, when I need extra income, I work on the farm. So I don't do very many hours on the farm, but it's there if I need it, and if it's not there, and if I don't need it, I can drop it. So it's really good that I have that. And throughout the summer I don't usually do any hours on the farm, but in the winter I do. And because of COVID, I also had to do some work on the farm. Somebody else asked, how did you build your local customer base? So basically, I built it through social media. I think I've mentioned that already. I have lots of really great followers on Instagram. At the beginning, I did do a few advertisements on Facebook, and put a few of my workshops and things up on Facebook Marketplace. The farm is up on quite a kind of a busy road, and people would come by, pick up the Honesty Box flowers, maybe take a business card and learn about me that way as well. So I have a really great local following on social media, which is really good. Somebody asks, what comes first, what you want to farm or what the clients like? And I think I answered that already, and it's what I like to farm, because I suppose it's a kind of like a bit like art when you're creating a bouquet, and people appreciate my art, so they come to purchase my flowers because that's what they like, and ultimately it's because what I like. So somebody else has asked, Michaela actually, who's got her own YouTube channel. Michaela says, English Flowers by Michaela, by the way. She says, I would love to know your experience of being a young farmer. There aren't very many of us. So like I said, when I first started my business, I was 24, and now I'm 29. And it was quite difficult actually, because I don't know whether it's because I was a young flower farmer, but a lot of the people that I was involved with at the time were older people who had a little bit more experience under the belt, and kind of was into different stuff than what I was into, and had different sales avenues than what I wanted to explore. So it kind of felt like I was doing it all on my own at the time. It was very, very challenging, because the only person that I kind of had to talk to about the flower farming was Rob, my husband. And I think he got a bit sick of it in the end, and he wasn't able to offer me the advice that I was looking for anyway, because he wasn't interested in the flower farming. He was kind of just interested in, he was supportive of me, but it wasn't a business venture that he was going into with me. It was me on my own, and he was just kind of supporting me through it. So it was difficult not to have anybody that was my age to speak to about flower farming. Somebody said, this is a good question, do you think working outdoors is good for mental health? And I 100% think that it is. There has been studies in the past, hasn't there, about even like the microbiology in the soil boosts like the good feeling hormones in your body and things like that. So there's definitely, and it's just great being out in the sunshine every day, being with my animals, and being in touch with the soil. Something feels very natural about it, and very sort of primitive in a way. But definitely, I had to spend a couple of days indoors this week working on some stuff on the computer, and I was like squirming in my seat. I just could not wait to get outside. I really hated being sat down all day. I felt sick from drinking too many cups of tea, and I'm just addicted to being outdoors basically. So my mental health would not be great if I had to work indoors all day every day. Linda asked, if you could rewind and do one thing different, what would it be? And it would definitely be to have my beds laid out and configured the way that they are now. So no dig beds with weed membrane on top, and no big grass paths. If I could have just nailed that a little bit earlier, I think I could have been a lot more productive earlier on and probably made a little bit more money in my first couple of years flower farming, instead of waiting until sort of like 3 or 4 years down the line to be able to start getting a bit more profitable on it. So definitely, I wish I'd have set out my beds in the right way right from year one, because I think that really would have helped. And I've seen there's flower farmers popping up all over the place nowadays, and a lot of them are doing it the right way. So it's good to see that people aren't making the same long, slow learning journeys that I went on. So I think that I've kind of covered everything so far. So I'm hoping that you found this interesting, informative. And if it leaves you with any questions, then please put them down in the comments below, and I'm happy to get back to you on those. If there's a lot of questions, maybe I'll do a follow-up video. If not, I'll get back to your comments just by way of replying to them. So thanks so much for your patience if you watched all the way through this. I know it's going to be a long one. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on my future videos.